So I'm riding in my wife's Honda Odyssey 2013, and it has had an ongoing problem with the brakes. I noticed when you press on the brake pedal that you get the inevitable shudder or shake of the steering wheel, and that is from basically warped rotors. Now, I've had a set of rotors and new pads sitting in my shop for probably over a year, and we've just been going on and on with this issue of the shaking wheel. And after this past weekend, I decided, you know what, it's time I go ahead and fix that. So before you start this task, make sure you set the parking brake so that your vehicle doesn't roll when you jack it up. To do this task, I have a variety of tools in front of me. I have, of course, the brake rotor, some hardware for the pads, the new pads. I have a torque wrench preset to 101 foot-pounds. That is for the caliper bracket. It is also a 19 millimeter. I have another torque wrench set to 37 foot-pounds. That is a 14 millimeter, and that is for the caliper bolts that go into the bracket. I have a separate 19 millimeter wrench, a separate 14 millimeter wrench, a couple of flat screwdrivers, a Phillips screwdriver, a caliper compressor, a mallet, a jack stand, and a lug wrench. So while it is on the ground, I will use a lug wrench to break the lug nuts loose, and then I will use my floor jack and go underneath where the perch is for your factory style jack point. I'll use the same thing you would if you were going to use a scissor jack that is supplied with your vehicle. Get over there. Get over there. Handy tip, anytime I use a four-way lug wrench, I always maintain whatever post I'm using facing the vehicle. That way I'm not guessing when it comes time to put things back together. And we need new tires. I'm putting the jack under the mount point for the rear suspension. So, or putting the jack stand, I should say. So that should hold that in place just fine. Okay, the goal here is to remove the caliper and the bracket because I'm replacing the rotor as well. So I'm going to start with the caliper bolts, 14 millimeter. I don't like to use my hands to break stuff loose, so I use a mallet. Sometimes this bolt will not break loose because the internal mount point will rotate. So this one is a 19 millimeter. You may need to do that. I'm going to put that on the bottom of this one, and I'll try to turn it by hand instead of using the mallet. See if I can't get it to break loose. That's tight. So let me reset this. Be a little more aggressive. That one was on rather tight. Those bolts out, you take the caliper loose and set it up on top of the rotor and the strut mount. So you'll see on this vehicle you've got these little spring clips. What these do is they push the pads apart. So You can see the action there. The idea is it helps reduce wear. So you'll get a new set of those, or you should get a new set of those in your hardware kit. I'm going to take the pad off. These pads aren't in bad shape, but I'm not reusing them. I can see that there's a screw that goes, a machine screw that goes into the rotor, and I can feel that that is not tight. It's not a big deal. Just noticing that. So 19 millimeter, I'm going to put it on the bolts on the back side of the bracket. And again, use a little aggression here to break those loose. Now I noticed I did the other side earlier. I didn't see any Loctite on these bolts. Doesn't mean you can't use it. So now the bracket will come off. You can check your sliders. They should move freely. If they don't, take these off. The boot will pull off of that. You can take this apart pretty easily. That boot just slides over that collar right there, and re-grease these, and it'll slip right back on. So these are moving easily, so I'm not going to worry about those. Now, the rotor itself, it's got a Phillips screw right here, machine screw. Take that loose. Little screw there. Take the rotor, just slide it off. This is also a good time to look to see if there's any kind of leakage, maybe in your CV boot, anything like that. You can kind of wiggle things around and see if anything's leaking or causing a problem. I know these rotors are no good. They're warped, so this is going to go away. So the rotors in this kit, they come in plastic bags. And normally, when you get new rotors, like from Advance or AutoZone or anything like that, they will have a grease coating on them. These do not. These are dry. These are also directional rotors. You can see here on the front face, it says front driver side. That's because these supposedly will help with braking and also keep the rotors cool because they're cross-drilled and slotted. This will line up. There's the screw hole. I know I don't have the camera aimed at it, but it's offset to one of the lug studs. So you just have to kind of rotate it around to make sure you got it lined up on the one that you want. And then put the screw back in. Okay, that's nice and tight. Now at this point I have a hardware kit. Comes with new stainless guides for the pads themselves and 2 new spring clips. So I'm going to replace those, and usually these will just pull out. Not much to it. You can clean out these troughs. Even take a wire brush, maybe if you live up north and you have a lot of rust. But that's all you have to do. Then you take the new ones, line them up. They're only going to fit one way. Press them in. There's little tabs on the inside here. You have to make sure those are caught. Don't want them folded back under it. And these are maybe an upgrade because these also have these springs which help hold the pads in place, kind of like an anti-rattle spring. Take this other one, slip it in place. I'll make sure all the tabs are in the right location. And then we put the bracket back on. Now, I'm not going to put Loctite on these. You're welcome to use Loctite if you like. And this is where I'm going to use the torque wrench set to 101 foot-pounds. Hear that click? That's torqued. Gotta get that one down a little further. Don't go past that click. 101 foot-pounds. Now, if you like, again, you could put Loctite in there, or you can put Loctite in the bolts that hold the bracket or the caliper itself. So when you take the pads, you got one that has nothing on the backside of it, and you have another one which has a screecher, a scraper, whatever you want to call it. That's going to make noise. You can call it a squealer. That'll make noise when the pads get thin enough. That'll hit the rotor and make a kind of a irritating sound. That's usually how you know you've got your pads are done. That one, backside scraper, gonna line this up and slip that in place. So that one's in, and then this other one, same thing, slip it in place. So I'm not going to put the little spring clips on just yet because it'll want to push these off. I don't want that to do that. Now what I want to do, and there's a couple ways you can do this, I'm just letting you know that there's more than one way to take care of your caliper. I do it kind of more of an old school method, I'll say, to where I just compress the pistons and let the fluid go back up into the reservoir. There's another way to do it where you take the bleeder right here, you can take that loose, open it up, compress and push out your old fluid, catch it in a bottle so you don't let it go into the environment, and then recycle it. And I just do it my old way, to where I take a little caliper compressor and line it up and compress the pistons. Take your time, don't get too aggressive with it. So what I want to show you up here is your reservoir. You'll find that the fluid, if you're going to do it my way and push the fluid back up in, it's going to want to backfill the reservoir. And what you can end up with is too much fluid if this has been serviced prior. So you'll have to have a way to recover that fluid. You don't want it to just flow out of there. That is one drawback to the way that I do it, is you have to get rid of some of that fluid. I have a little syringe and a bottle that I keep, and the syringe I will draw fluid out and put it into the bottle. Hopefully I don't need to do that. We're going to find out. I think I might be close. Check and see. Things look good there. And yes, it's going to fit on there. So at this point, I want to get my new spring clips. And you should be able to see there's little holes in these pads. So you compress the spring slightly, put it in those holes. Keep a hand on it so it doesn't push them apart. Compress the other one, put it in the holes as well, and then put your caliper on. You're going to push in the sliders, install the bolts. Just gonna tighten them a little bit with the wrench. Now I already know these are going to try to turn, so I'm going to put this 19mm wrench on. I have my torque wrench set to 37 foot-pounds. There it is. There's the click. Just double check. Good. Oh, there we go. And that's it. Okay, if you change your pads and rotors, there is information online about doing the break-in. Usually it's getting it up to a certain speed, decelerating, back up, decelerating, back up, decelerating. And what that does is it kind of breaks in the pads and rotors to themselves so that they work better down the road. As you're doing this, if you do have to remove some fluid, again, I use a little syringe and I have a bottle that I pull off the excess fluid. What I also do is between each wheel, like if I do the passenger side first, I will do that repair and then compress the brake pedal so that the fluid goes down and pushes back into that caliper, and I'm not taking away fluid that I may need later. So make sure you balance that out. As it is, I compress the brake pedal after doing the driver's side, and my fluid is at the right level. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope you found some information in this video that helps with your project. And that'll be it. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Don't forget that.